Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining today's conference. Please note that all lines will be muted for the duration of today's call. You are welcome to submit written questions during the presentation, and these will be addressed at the end of the call. Instructions on how to submit a question will be sent out shortly after we begin. And with that, I'll turn the call over to Kimberly Blackwell. Kimberly, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Happy Women's History Month, as today we celebrate, honor, and salute International Women's Day. Again, my name is Kimberly Blackwell, and I'm the chair of the Communications Committee and council member of the National Women's Business Council. Thank you for joining us for the Council's March 2017 public meeting, a celebration of women business owners, history, participation, and progress. The National Women's Business Council was established by H.R. 5050, also known as the Women's Business Ownership Act, as a federal advisory council to the U.S. Small Business Administration, U.S. Congress, and the White House on issues of impact and importance to women business owners and leaders. It is the council's job to equip the nation's decision makers of both public and private sectors with policy recommendations that will enhance, advance, and positively impact the climate and opportunities for women in business across the country. We do this by producing best-in-class resources and research on the relevant issues facing current and aspiring women business owners and women business leaders. Our mission is to use compelling and rigorous research to incite action while building bridges between the public and private arenas to support women's entrepreneurial ambitions and endeavors. That said, thank you again for joining us today, and this meeting is officially called to order. Let's start with an official roll call of the council members. Please say present when I call your name. Carla Harris, Marcia Bailey,
Present.
Rosanna Presbitero Biondo,
Present.
Carrie Warburg Block, Sherry Stewart Deutschman,
Present.
Jen Earl,
Present.
Dr. Marsha Firestone,
Present.
Whitney Keys,
Present.
Dr. Teresa Nelson, Pam Prince
Sharon
Eason.
Vossick representing.
Thank you, Sharon. Pam Prince Eason,
Present.
Deborah Rosado Shaw,
Present.
Ann Chibunko Moore, and Rose Wang.
Present.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your National Women's Business Council. We have a full agenda for today's public meeting, so let's get started. Every year during Women's History Month, we celebrate the great contributions of women across the country. Here at the National Women's Business Council, we are using today's opportunity to take a deeper look at the history of women's participation in public policy. During the next couple hours, you're going to hear the different ways we are delivering our commitments and building upon our principle that research is our springboard for action. Victoria Budson, founder and executive director of the Women in Public Policy program at the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government on women's participation in public policy, will deliver our featured address today. And the Council's National Women's Business representatives will share how their individual organizations support women in business across the country. These organizations include the Association of Women's Business Centers, Astia, the National Association of Women Business Owners, the Women's Presidents Organization, Women Impacting Public Policy, and the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, otherwise known as WBENC. After our keynote and panel discussion, we'll have some time to hear from you too via question and answer session. We value your input, and we want to be sure to respond to any questions and comments that you may have. We're also taking this conversation online throughout today's event. We encourage you to share the conversation. You can all join online using the hashtag #CelebrateHer. Again, that's hashtag #CelebrateHer on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Hashtag #CelebrateHer, all caps HR. Our Twitter handle is NWBC. Our Instagram handle is at NWBCGov, and we can be found on Facebook at NWBCGov. That outlines our agenda and housekeeping notes. Now I'll turn it over to Councilmember Whitney Keys, who will give a brief update on our research portfolio. Whitney, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Whitney Keys, and I currently serve on the National Women's Business Council. The Council views research as a springboard to action. Our research portfolio spans each of our 4 pillars: data, access to capital, access to markets, and job creation and growth. This quarter, we had the privilege of releasing 2 dynamic research reports. On February 21st, we released Social Entrepreneurship Amongst Women and Men in the United States. This was a project that explored how women are drawn to mission-based initiatives and firms, and that women's pursuit of social entrepreneurship can be an important engine for the economy. Our literature uncovered research showing that while women account for nearly 4 out of 10 traditional entrepreneurs, they make up almost half of the population of social entrepreneurs. This report also analyzed brand new data from the 2015 Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, revealing information about motivation, educational attainment, and capital access among entrepreneurs launching and leading social enterprises in the United States and globally. Just last week, on March 2nd, we also released our research entitled The Commercialization Path: Entrepreneurship and Intellectual Property Outputs Among Women in STEM. This report confirms a gender gap in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial performance between men and women in STEM, and it suggests that women business owners hold a greater number of patents in non-STEM rather than STEM fields. This is a trend that is reversed among men business owners. Data analysis in this report relies on high-level tabulations from the 2012 Census Bureau's Survey of Business Owners and Self-Employed Persons, or SBO. Therefore, recommendations include a call for more detailed industry-level data in order to make stronger claims about determinants of success in intellectual property development and STEM commercialization. Related to STEM commercialization, we do want to take this occasion to applaud last week's passage of 2 very important bills into law. The Promoting Women in Entrepreneurship Act, which authorizes the National Science Foundation to encourage its entrepreneurial programs to particularly recruit and support women as they move from research to commercialization, as well as the Inspire Women Act, which directs the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, to encourage young women in the STEM fields. To learn more about either of these papers mentioned, please visit www.nwbc.gov, where you can download the full reports. Looking further into 2017, you can anticipate additional, insightful research projects that span all of our 4 research pillars. Here's a preview of just a few reports that you can expect to see in the coming quarters. This month, we're going to be releasing our research on women's participation in business incubators and accelerators. The goal of this study is to better understand the interactions between women entrepreneurs and business incubators and accelerators in the U.S. This report highlights the results of an original National Women's Business Council survey of women entrepreneurs and incubator managers. In addition, this study examines the characteristics of the enterprises owned by women who graduated from incubators and accelerators. So please stay tuned for the full report. We're also in the midst of wrapping up our research on women, veterans, and business. According to the 2012 SBO, according to that 2012 Census Bureau survey that I mentioned earlier on business owners and self-employed persons, there are over 2.5 million veteran-owned businesses in the United States, with 15% of them being owned by women. This report looks more deeply into the business needs of this specific population, and we intend to release this study on veteran women business owners in the coming months. Our research on necessity as a driver for women entrepreneurship investigates the factors that drive entrepreneurship, and it develops a framework for understanding the motivations and related needs of women entrepreneurs who may have founded their businesses out of necessity. We have kicked off the second phase to this project, and we will keep you posted on its developments. Our crowdfunding research looks at the success rate of women in crowdfunding campaigns, and in our research of Hispanic women entrepreneurship, we are analyzing key differences in the experiences of Native versus foreign-born Hispanic women and the implications for related policy supports. We've also got exciting work on small business growth, entrepreneurship ecosystems, millennial women entrepreneurs, and we even have an original survey of women business owners commissioned by the Council in the works. We promote this research to encourage dialogue between women entrepreneurs and thought leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders to help develop and identify policies and recommendations that reflect the needs of women entrepreneurs and women business owners. This is done in order to support the growth of women business ventures. It's been an exciting time for us at the National Women's Business Council, and we look forward to keeping you updated on these important research efforts. And now, I would like to turn it over to my fellow council member, Rosanna Privatera Biondo, for updates on our communications and engagement efforts. Rosie, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Whitney, and well done. And good afternoon, participants. I am Rosanna Privatera Biondo, and I sit on the Council's Engagement Committee. And I am pleased to present you with some updates on the Council's communication and engagement activity. This past January, the Council participated in the U.S. Small Business Administration's virtual conference for research partners. We had the opportunity to further explain and share our tool that we informally call Grow Her Biz. This online resource platform, Grow Her Business, a resource for startup to scale up, links to nearly 200 best-in-class resources for women entrepreneurs at all stages of business development, from origination and startup to scaling upwards and beyond along the path to becoming high-growth businesses. You can find and learn more about our resource platform at www.womenbizinfo.sites.usa.gov. During February, Black History Month, our social media channels honored Black women business owners and entrepreneurs by highlighting a statistic of the day from our Black Women-Owned Business Fact Sheet. We are now well into March, Women's History Month. To kick off our efforts to celebrate women, we are running a digital campaign to highlight and share the data that demonstrates the critical contributions to this country's economy made by women business owners. Additionally, make sure you have the following dates on hold in your calendar for the next public meeting, which is going to be Wednesday, May 10th, 2017, and Wednesday, August 9th, 2017. More details are forthcoming in the future, and we are looking forward to having all of you join us then. At our last public meeting in December of 2016, we were on our way to realizing our annual report for the fiscal year 2016. United we thrive, sustaining our momentum in the public and private arenas. In our annual report, you can find a review of the Council's 7 completed research reports for fiscal year 2016. You will also find summaries of the Council's public meetings in FY16, averaging approximately 200 attendees per meeting. We look forward to bringing the Council to D.C. in May of 2017 for an in-person public meeting. Highlights from more than 60 panel meetings and other events with stakeholders that the Council members and staff participated in. Not only do we bring the voices of women business owners into the public process through these events, but we deliver information on major wins from Congress, the White House, and the SBA to women entrepreneurs across the country. And priorities and plans for the fiscal year 2017 include initiatives already in progress. The NWBC's research and data is a valuable stakeholder. In the calendar year 2016, the National Women's Business Council was mentioned more than 900 times in the media and reached almost 2 billion impressions in 2016. That's wonderful. We constantly get requests for data, breakdowns, or specific numbers from reporters, heads of organizations, collaboratives, and private sector individuals. Please keep these requests coming. We share our annual report with the White House, the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Small Business Administration, and more broadly with women entrepreneurs and the general public too. But in case you haven't read it, we invite you to visit our website at www.nwbc.gov to take a look. Enjoy. And with that, I now turn the mic back to Council Member Kimberly Blackwell to kick off the next portion of our public meeting. Kim?
Thank you, Rosie. We are very fortunate today to hear from our next speaker. I am pleased and honored to introduce Victoria Budson, founder and executive director of the Women in Public Policy program at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. In addition to this role, Ms. Budson founded and chairs From Harvard Square to the Oval Office, a political campaign practicum, a nonpartisan initiative of the Women in Public Policy program that provides a group of Harvard graduate students with the training and support that they need to ascend an electoral process at the local, state, and national levels. She serves as chairman of the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, and Ms. Budson is an appointed member of the Boston Mayoral Women's Workforce Council, the first of its kind in the country that makes recommendations on policy and workplace proposals to help women in the workforce. Ms. Budson is also a member of the Women in Public Service Project Institute Planning Committee. The project, an initiative founded by Seven Sisters Colleges, Barnard College, Bryn Mawr College, Mount Holyoke College, Smith College, and Wesley College in partnership with the U.S. Department of State, aims to educate a new generation of women committed to public service, create an infrastructure of support and mentoring, and help to enable more women to enter public service and political leadership. For her work in closing gender gaps, Ms. Budson was named one of CNN's 10 visionary women and a member of Boston Magazine's Power Class. The Women in Public Policy program at Harvard is the preeminent institution for advancing interdisciplinary research on approaches to closing gender gaps, educating students and leaders on gender policy, and implementing policy changes at the local, state, and national levels. Ms. Butson's policy insight and expertise is drawn upon by leaders across various sectors as well as multinational corporations leading the efforts on diversity and inclusion. She speaks regularly on topics related to closing gender gaps in policy and governmental institutions, in addition to the gender gaps in electoral politics. Her work also delves into the diversity and gender equality to improve the profitability of corporations and the prosperity of families in society. I now turn it over to Victoria as she shares with us about how women business owners can get involved in public policy arenas and to point out future policy areas where women entrepreneurs should be on lookout. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate that, Kimberly, and I also wanted to thank Esther Morales for all the work that she has done to continue the important research focus of the National Women's Business Council. And lastly, Annie Rorm, who really has been dynamite in putting together the meaningful discussion and conference that we have today. So it's my pleasure to really talk with you as women entrepreneurs, as women business owners, to look ahead to what is our policy landscape, what opportunities do we have, and how do we leverage this truly unprecedented time where we have more evidence-based research on how to close gender gaps than ever before. It used to be that women's focused research organizations studied the size of gaps, but now we can do something really quite different. We have the ability to develop interventions and tools that literally can leverage and use the different positions from which we sit to help create equality, to shrink gaps, and to define what the future is going to look like. And not just from a moral framework, which is important, or a rights-based argument, which makes sense, but from a returns-based argument. So that when we sit with colleagues across the business sectors in the U.S. and abroad, we're able to define for CEOs, the C-suite, and investors how it is that we can take these gains for women and turn them into gains for the economy, which can be a very powerful driver. So with that, let me talk a little bit about over the many years that I've been working on these issues and at Harvard, there's really two key takeaways. And my whole presentation can be kind of summed up with the importance here. And it's something which is dramatically exciting for where each of you are, because you are really at the nexus of where the change in energy is going to come from. When we look at women or women's equality, no matter where women are in the United States or across the globe, there's only two things that really provide women equality in my view, and everything else is an input or an output. The first is statutory protection, that women have the right to own land, access to capital, the right to vote, the right to be full citizens, the right to bodily integrity, and so on. And each of these policy-driven protections or rights is always a footprint in sand. It takes constant vigilance. It takes really watching what's taking place, because gains made during one time period can be wiped away. And the needs of women also shift over time. So it's something we all have to be mindful of. And there's no gain which is irrevocable. So we have to stay methodically within that bailiwick. The second, which is where all of your work becomes so important, the second is that a woman has the ability to support herself and her dependents over the arc of her adult life. Whether or not she chooses to exercise that right, she has the ability that if she chooses to, she can be an economic, wage-earning, or entrepreneurial, or CEO person engaging the paid labor force. Now, our experience here at WAPP has really, the Women in Public Policy Program, that's our acronym, has really been centered on how do we build these interventions to help close these wage gaps and then translate it. So we are totally aligned with the National Women's Business Council in all of these efforts to provide evidence. And you just heard about wonderful reports which are coming out. And I think the language is exactly right. Kimberly talked about it being compelling and vigorous research. And then taking those findings and translating them is how we build the roadmap to the future that we want. What we have found again and again is using arguments that are based around why people should invest and care about women, though very meaningful, don't always give enough information for policymakers, whether that's in the government sector or senior business leaders within the private sector, to actually change their behaviors and change what is taking place because they have other stakeholders. And to align what we know based in evidence with the actions we can take is what gives us really good policy. And I'm going to give you a couple examples for some of what we've been working on here, and they were alluded to and mentioned a bit in the introduction. So here in Boston, we had some unique things in the country and some things that make us very average. So, as you may know, in the United States, we have more than any other state in the country, we have the highest number of women. We have the highest number of women who've received high school, postgraduate, and other degrees. And that puts us in a position where one might think we would be in a position to have really inoculated women from that wage gap. But what we find is that when we have done that, it doesn't change it. That our wage gap can't be shrunk based on our level of education. Now, what we have learned from this is that the wage gap and how it relates to level of education is actually inversely proportional. That we're in a position where the more highly educated a woman is, the broader the gap. Because so often, as is the case, women are actually in a position where when there's more discretion, we're more likely to have a situation where managers, due to implicit bias, I think happens most of the time rather than explicit bias, women are underpaid for that same work. In addition, we have the situation where women graduate to a wage gap. It happens right away. The AWBC and others have done dynamite research which shows us that right away women end up in a position where they will have roughly a 10 to 11% difference compared to their male counterparts when they get hired into jobs. Now, you've often heard people talk about the pipeline, or is it women's choices, or how is it that we ended up here? Now, the pipeline, as we know, if we look at the percent of women who are graduating, who have PhDs, and then, for example, we look at the number of tenured faculty, we're no longer in a pipeline issue. I know that nearly all of you on the phone have encountered this. You have all heard people say, well, we just couldn't find the women. We looked, but we couldn't locate where they are. And what we know is it isn't about what talent is available. It's about the recruitment processes and how they come together. Now, all of this moves us towards understanding why we both have a wage gap, but also then why we have a wealth gap. So now, as we're really looking at understanding these issues, and because we're a group of women business leaders, what I wanted to share also, for example, is the MBA data. When you look at male and female MBAs who graduate, slide, what you'll see is in situations where there's clear standards and there's low ambiguity within that field, women, and go back 2 slides to where you see the glass of water, when you're in a field where there's low ambiguity, it's very clear for people when they're negotiating, and there's almost no gender effect in the differences that people are paid. But when you look where there's high ambiguity, where women don't have the same set of information, we see the starting gap at $11,000. Now, which might not sound like that much, but over time, those small differences lead to really large effects. And if you take that, you aggregate it over a career and include raises and so forth, that extra $11,000 works out to about $1.6 million. Now, all of this leads us over time not just to a wage gap, but to a wealth gap. Slide. And with this wealth gap, what we see is that women not only have a difference in amount they can spend, but there are really significant changes that happen throughout society. And your entrepreneurship and your business leadership can dramatically impact the wealth gap. And here in the United States, we talk all the time about the wage gap, and we also need to be talking about the wealth gap. Now, what does wealth mean? Slide. When we're looking at wealth, the common definition is if you take all of your assets and you minus out your debts. And so most of us, when we think of wealth, is what we have in terms of cash or investments or retirement accounts, real estate or business assets. Now, those of us who are working with women across all of the different socioeconomic strata understand that there are many, many, many women in the United States that don't have assets, that have some amount of income, but are literally not living in a position to have wealth, which doesn't just impact them or their dependents, but it really impacts, of course, their communities, their ability to fully participate not just in the wage economy, but also in the policy economy. When we're looking at the debts against that, mortgages, credit cards, educational debt, and I want to note that often in the United States, there's conversations about where we are in terms of feminism. And you can walk into lots of rooms where people will not identify with feminism or the movement or the women's movement or women's advancement or women's equality. But if you turn to women in that room and you say, how many of you have a credit card in your wallet? Virtually every hand will go up. Or how many of you own a home or would aspire to own a home? Access to credit and being able to have a credit card, as well as the ability to own a home and the ability to achieve credit and sign in your own name, are all gains from the type of work which each of us is doing now and many of us have done over the years. And I think it's important that when we are looking at these issues, we see them also in the historical context. Now, people, of course, want wealth, not just for what they can buy, but people absolutely want wealth so that they have the ability to care for themselves, support themselves and their dependents as they grow older, to take care of themselves in economic downturn and in crisis. It changes how women see and experience their lives and work here in the United States. Slide. Now, what is fascinating is that here in the United States, women now control 51% of the personal wealth in the United States. That is $14 trillion. As the baby boomer generation ages, that number is expected to grow to $22 trillion. Women's wealth actually has exceeded men's wealth. That is only going to expand over time. Now, I want you to keep in mind that we talked about women's reverse gender education gap in the United States, and the ability for women to be taking that wealth and turning that into entrepreneurship, turning that into economic security, and turning that into greater capacity. Slide. Now, in addition, when we look at the wealth gap, I want you to look, because when we say women, women is really a monolithic word, right? And each of us envisions a different woman. But women, of course, are a highly varied set of individuals throughout the United States, different by demographic, by dialect, by priorities, by region, by area of expertise, value systems, and so forth. The slide I'm showing you now looks at the median wealth of single men and single women, as well as couples. People who choose to marry tend to be from higher socioeconomic backgrounds, so please don't misinterpret my slide to imagine that being married makes one wealthier. There perhaps is a small effect, but the reality is that people who have greater wealth tend to couple. And this is a slide which is showing married and cohabitating as opposed to only one or the other. But you'll see much larger amount of wealth. And now I want you to look at male versus female wealth, particularly before retirement, because we see transfers of wealth in retirement. And what we find is that women have about half the wealth that men do, ages 18 to 64. Literally think about that difference. So when we talk about wage gaps and income gaps, we're talking about really small numbers. And when we're talking about wealth gap, that percentage difference is quite large. Now, if you and I were talking about the wage gap, we would say women on the whole, compared to men in the United States, are making about 78, 79 cents on the dollar. White women compared to white men, 81 cents on the dollar. Black men compared, 74 cents on the dollar. Hispanic men, 69 cents on that dollar. Black women, 67 cents on that dollar. And Hispanic women, 62 cents. When we talk about wealth, it's half. You can think of it as wealth 50 cents on that dollar. very different outcomes and choices when people have that. Slide. Now, in addition, I want people to understand why this is. So with single women, they are more likely to have the burden of custodial parenthood. There's the outcomes, right, from the wage gap that does, of course, lead to a wealth gap. Economic burden of divorce. Women pay a disproportionate amount. And when it comes to how women have access to credit, women and men who are single, who have the same financial profile, not different but the same, are much more likely, over 30% more likely, to receive some prime mortgages that will cost them over the life of that loan an additional $85,000 to $186,000 compared to their male counterparts. And when you think of the significance of that in the wealth gap, very large. Now, if we continue to understand and look at this slide, let's also look at female breadwinners. So one could say, well, how much does this matter? Now, here in the United States, when we look at female breadwinners, even within families that are coupled, wives who earn more than their working husbands, we see that number continuing to rise. So the breadwinner myth is a myth. The idea that men are making more because they have a greater burden of taking care of family within the United States. All Americans are working hard to take care of family in the United States. And what we also know with this is that the advantages that men have gained from that myth often don't align. To give you some examples from Boston here in Boston, nearly 48% of kids will grow up in single head of household families, of course the vast majority of whom are women. And if you're wondering if you just heard me say that, you literally just heard me say 48% of children in Boston will grow up in single family head of household. Slide. Now, when we're looking across the S&P 500, we've been looking at this pyramid for a long time, right? That at the top, we see a very small amount of CEOs are female, about 5.8%. And when we go down to total employees, we have lots and lots of women. But here's the good news. Slide. Women are now holding 33% of major management roles in the United States. Nearly 15% are CEOs, 23% are serving on boards, and women-owned businesses account for more than 11 million businesses in the United States. As you know, they employ nearly 9 million people and generate over $1.6 trillion in revenue. Women in entrepreneurship is extraordinarily important. It is a driver in the economy. Women are starting businesses at greater numbers than their male counterparts. We're really in a terrific upclip in terms of this. Now, women business owners still face challenges. Slide. 60% of primary caregivers are women. So as women continue to grow their business acumen, their incredible performance in the economic marketplace, they're still in a position where when they go home, just the way they were 50 years ago, literally still doing a second shift. Men who are participating more at home than ever before, when they believe that they're doing about 50% of the labor, what we're still finding is that they're doing about 18% or so of that labor at home. Do note, I don't think that this is something which happens on purpose. They're probably doing double what their fathers did in the role modeling that they saw. So we still have a long way to go into giving women equal access to those entrepreneurship hours and that precious time to really build business to vision. Slide. In addition to having different amounts of access to capital, different patterns of building wealth, we also pay differential costs. And we can talk about it from the micro, so all the way looking at that we're going to be spending more on dry cleaning. We're going to be spending more on haircuts. We're going to be spending more on personal care. But also all the way up to the large expenses like healthcare costs. We spend more on healthcare because we take care of our health and go to the doctor more. And we follow up with issues in a more timely way. And this doesn't begin to get towards equal until men are retired. And so what we're seeing is we make less, we have a higher level of education, it costs us more in financial services and industries, right? It costs us more for those subprime mortgages and so forth. Lots of types of insurance can cost us more, particularly depending on which state you live in and what the laws are. And then we have higher costs and are spending more on things such as healthcare. Slide. Now, because of our work patterns, we are going to depend more on Social Security than our male counterparts. And because when Social Security was designed, they didn't mean to design it as a non-gender neutral law and policy, but because women tend to have more years out of the marketplace, women tend to spend more time caregiving and are then more likely to be working part-time, because our jobs are less pensionable, because we live longer, because we're more likely to be unpartnered. All of this over time means that we're going to rely more heavily on Social Security, and we're going to receive less Social Security, and we're going to need it. So for those of you who are watching, what you can see is that our Social Security difference is quite significant, particularly in that age 50 to 64 band. Slide. And I also want us to, again, talk about the intersectionality. When we're looking at median wealth for single men and women, and we could look at it in all kinds of forms, race is a very, very strong marker and indicator, both for pay, as we talked about before, also for building of wealth and access to different types of financial products and how we are viewed in the financial marketplace. So we have to really understand that when we talk about women, we need to drill down and look at Black women and Hispanic women and Asian Pacific women and so forth to understand all the different challenges and opportunities. But when we talk about race, what we also need to understand is that by 2040, every major city in America will be majority minority. That the largest purchasing power in the United States will be Hispanic women. That the majority of household purchasing decisions today are, of course, made by women, and that even includes car purchasing, right? We have such a tendency to imagine that women have less power than is demonstrated. We have extraordinary power, and I always like to also note, people often discuss women and women business owners, but let's stick with women for the moment, as if we're a minority, as if we're an interest group, as if we're a place to put attention if there's time or if there's money. But here in the United States, women are the majority in every state except Alaska. And we're in a situation where we always are the main mission of policy. We are not something to be thought about after. And our economic contribution is significant, and our economic growth and growth trajectory is going to be defining over time. Slide. What we know is that in order for us to get it right, to most effectively build business, entrepreneurship, and the growth of our GDP in the U.S., it is driven by small business. It is driven by those of you who are on the phone, and we are literally in a situation where we can take this knowledge and help get the policy right. And it's by using this knowledge and evidence-based research that we can put ourselves in a situation where policymakers are understanding the needs of small business, are understanding the needs of women entrepreneurs, and are designing systems so both the large corporations as well as entrepreneurs and small business will have access to the type of support that they need over time, that will have paid leave and other types of systems in the U.S. that enable each and every woman and her family as well as her business to thrive. And I think I'll stop there today. I'm really looking forward to the question and answer session. And I couldn't be more pleased with the incredibly important research that has come out of the National Women's Business Council and how glad we are to be working together in this important space of evidence-based research and how it's impacting policy. Thank you.
Wow. Victoria, thank you. a heartfelt expression of gratitude for your vision, passion, courage, commitment, and service at the Women in Public Policy program and all that you've accomplished. We appreciate you joining us today for this incredible insight on the work that you're leading and sharing, influencing and impacting on behalf of women as business owners, women as business leaders, and women as contributors to our communities. Some of you have asked, and I want to underscore, the hashtag that we're using today is hashtag celebrate her in all caps, hashtag celebrate her. Now it's my pleasure to jump into the next portion of our meeting and our panel discussion, supporting women in business, the voices of the Council's National Women's Business Organization. And I would like to introduce a friend and colleague, Jen Earl, Council Member of the National Women's Business Council and President of the National Association of Women Business Owners, which is warmly recognized, regarded, and respected as NAWBO. Ms. Jen Earl has worked with NAWBO since 2008 to help carry out the NAWBO Board's vision. She brings to the table more than a decade of multidisciplinary high-level experience in operational and project management development, support, and execution. Within 3 years of graduating from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in economics at the age of 25, Ms. Earl became the co-owner of a commercial music production company. During her tenure, the business grew exponentially, rivaling the largest commercial music companies in the business and working with entities including BMW, Disney, Nintendo, and Sprint. Fast forward a decade later, and Ms. Earl launched a consulting group, Savvy Ops, to provide virtual operational support to the nonprofit business world. She's worked domestically and globally to support women and their families and vulnerable youth. Jen, the floor is now yours to tell us a little bit more about the great work of NAWBO and to kick off the panel.
Thank you, Kim. I am Jen. I currently serve on the National Women Business Council as the CEO from the National Association of Women Business Owners. In 1994, the Small Business Reauthorization Act changed the membership structure of the council from exclusively women business owners to its current form, which includes both women business owners and 6 representatives from women's business organizations. Currently, the 6 national women's business organizations on the council are Astia, the Association of Women's Business Centers, or AWBC, the National Association of Women Business Owners, or NAWBO, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, or WBENC, Women Impacting Public Policy, or WIPP, and Women's Presidents Organization, or WPO. Together, these diverse organizations support women-owned businesses at all stages of business development and growth. They also ground the Council's research and practice, identifying critical needs in the landscape for future research exploration. Today, we will be hearing from the representatives of these 6 organizations to learn more about their mission, their historical impact, and the ways in which entrepreneurs and thought leaders can be engaged in the entrepreneurial community. So while I have the mic, why don't I tell you a little bit more about my own organization, NAWBO. NAWBO is a membership organization and was formed 42 years ago by 12 women business owners in Washington, D.C., who believed that coming together, sharing ideas, fostering entrepreneurial opportunities, and creating a like-minded support would result in positive outcomes for struggling female entrepreneurs. NAWBO was the very first association for serious women business owners. And as our founding president, Susan Hager, used to say, get a seat at the table, and if you can't, build your own table and invite other women, which is exactly what NAWBO did. NAWBO was founded in 1975 in Washington to advocate on behalf of women-owned businesses, and over the years has been a catalyst for change. We are the only dues-based national organization representing the interests of all women entrepreneurs across all industries. We have 58 chapters across the United States and represent the voice of the 9 million women business owners in the U.S. That includes our virtual chapter for women business owners outside the 45-mile radius of a physical chapter. We also have an annual conference each year that brings women business owners together. This year will be in Minneapolis on October 16th and 17th. We also have international alliances with the Global Summit of Women, FCEM, the World Association of Women Entrepreneurs, Opportunity International, and the Mexican Association of Women Entrepreneurs, Vital Voices, etc., and we're working to expand our international engagement. Our mission, with a servant leader philosophy, as an organization of and for women founders and business owners, we propel women entrepreneurs into economic, social, and political spheres of power worldwide. We work to strengthen the wealth-creating capacity of our members and promote economic development. We create innovative and effective change in the business culture. We build strategic alliances, coalitions, and affiliations, and we transform public policy and influence opinions. We stay true to our mission by providing the following: capital, as in access to capital, education and resources our members need to make the best decisions for their business growth. This includes our partnerships with financial institutions, our affinity member-only benefits, education on access to capital and leveraging capital for growth, and engaging with like-minded partners that assist in delivering tools for business growth. We also focus on confidence, leadership training, and tools necessary to grow personally and professionally. When women in business motivate each other and try to help each other succeed, it helps improve the confidence of the entire inner circle. We hold regional development training workshops twice a year with our chapter leaders and members on confidence to run their chapters and to be more confident in their businesses. We cultivate leaders locally, regionally, and nationally, getting more women to step up into leadership positions and encourage them to get outside board experience. And locally and nationally, we offer programming as it relates to negotiating, culture, time management, et cetera, to build our members' skills so they can feel more confident about their business decisions. We are also a community, a sisterhood of like-minded women that support each other and provide a catalyst for change across the country and the world. We meet monthly within our NAWBO chapters, building our relationships, business advisory boards, groups of mentors, and peer-to-peer support. We connect via a number of different social media platforms. We build delegations to attend international events, and of course, we all come together for our annual Women's Business Conference. And then as it relates to capitals, we work as an advocate for members and the businesses with elected officials from our nation's capital to their state capitals. We are a bipartisan group, and we work to build relationships with both political parties. We hold an annual NAWBO Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C. each June. It will be June 13th this year, where members and chapter leaders come from across the country to meet with representatives from the Small Business Administration and the National Women's Business Council to discuss the current obstacles and future outlook for women in business. Also this year, we have a new program called the Academy for Public Service, which will be on June 14th to really work with women and educate them for those that want to run for office or support a campaign. Regarding historical achievements, NAWBO was the first serious women's business organization and grows to more than 21 chapters representing 30 states by 1985. NAWBO fuels the support of HR 5050, which is the Women's Business Ownership Act, which established the National Women's Business Council. It eliminated all state laws that require a male co-signer for a business loan. It improved how women-owned businesses were counted by the Census Bureau, and it initiated the Women's Business Centers for training, education, and counseling. NAWBO leadership worked with the White House Conference on Small Business in 1995 to successfully champion a multi-billion-dollar women-owned business loan fund. NAWBO submits testimony to the House and Senate Small Business Committees stating that concerns for the proposed rules issued by the Small Business Administration for the Women-Owned Business Set-Aside Program. NAWBO is invited to serve on the steering committee for FCEM, an international organization consisting of women business owner associations in more than 17 countries. And just recently, NAWBO reactivated its 501c3, which is the NAWBO Institute for Entrepreneurial Development, which features a virtual learning platform and focuses on education, tools, and resources for capacity building for women entrepreneurs around the world. As a CEO, I'm honored to serve in this amazing organization and also very excited to have you hear from my esteemed colleagues with us today that will also share the amazing work their organizations are doing on behalf of women entrepreneurs. First, we'll hear a little bit about Astia. The council member who represents Astia, Teresa Nelson, is doing international work as we speak, and in her place, I'd like to introduce Sharon Vosmek, the CEO of Astia, and member of Astia Angels, who will tell us more about Astia today. Ms. Sharon Vosmek has been the Chief Executive Officer since 2007 and the Chief Operating Officer since 2004. She concurrently serves as an advisor of Kick Labs and as founder and lead of the We Own It collaboration. Just prior, she was the principal of her own consulting practice, S.J. Vosmek and Associates, for 15 years, which she founded. She delivered solutions to a variety of clients, including PG&E, Japan, U.S. Community Education and Exchange, the University of Wisconsin, Madison, PAC-Bell, and the Women's Technology Cluster. Previously, Ms. Bosnick served at American Express and as an aide to a U.S. Senator. She serves on numerous boards and specializes in organizational development, process improvement, group facilitation and decision-making, and internal and external communications. She is both an effective fundraiser and adept at cost-saving identification. She is active in the Bay Area nonprofit community, working closely with organizations that promote social, economic, racial, and gender equity and enfranchisement. Sharon, I turn the mic over to you to tell us about Astia Angels.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I also would like to express my appreciation for having the opportunity to participate in this conversation today on such an important day, International Women's Day. I'm grateful for all of you pulling together the conversations, and especially grateful for the research and the speakers who have gone before me. I'm here today to represent the opportunity as we see it and the voice forward. I really appreciated our opening remarks that talked about moving beyond measuring the size of the gap to defining a future. And we see Astia as an active call to action for investors globally and most notably here in Silicon Valley, where the funding for companies that have women on the founding team continues to be dismally low, well below 10%, and by some measures as low as 3%. What is Astia? Well, we're an investment mission-based organization. Next slide. Mouse has controls. There we go. Astia was founded in 1999 as a global community committed to the success of high-growth companies that were inclusive of women on the founding team. What I should really make clear to those today and for those who have joined the conversation is we ourselves are a highly inclusive organization. We include a global network of over 5,000 individuals, half men and half women, who are committed to the success of world-class companies driving innovation to market, accessing global markets, and delivering jobs and growth in the economy. For over 17 years, we've done this work through the profound generosity of our over 5,000 members. And as of 2013, we've added to the mix a network of investors, of which I'm a member, adding capital to our offering to the global ecosystem. Next slide. I mention Astia Angels because it matters. As we think about the journey that Astia has been on since 1999, when we were founded as an incubator here in Silicon Valley, we believed and we thought that the data would bear out that when presented with the opportunity to invest in exceptional companies, the investment community would follow. At our 10-year anniversary in 2010, we did an assessment and found that in our entire 10-year journey, the investment landscape had not budged at all as it related to women-led high-growth companies. That meant that we needed to reconsider our approach, and I think reconsidering our approach has been done exceptionally well. In 2013, we launched Astia Angels, which is a global network of men and women who invest directly in the companies who apply to Astia. They do all of this work in alignment with our fundamental mission of ensuring the success of exceptional women-led companies, and they are doing it at a pace and an appetite that's largely unparalleled in the market. To date, since the launch, we've invested over $13 million of our own capital, and in syndication, just over $127 million. And this matters in this market as we think about access to wealth, as our earlier discussed, and women's ability to access equity investment in the high-growth space, which transforms their opportunity and transforms the business that businesses see our forward trajectory to be one focused on investment. The barriers to entry that we identified back at our founding continue to endure right at the point of investment. Women are not the issue. It's no longer a pipeline issue. I doubt that it ever was at our founding, and I appreciate prior comments about the myth of the pipeline. Women are at the ready. Our approach is to stop fixing women and fix the ecosystem, and I think that our investment activity does a fantastic job of proving out the opportunity that currently exists. So let's move to the next slide and talk about how people get engaged. The next slide. The opportunities to engage in Astia are abundant, and for those who have joined us today, I hope you'll consider, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a woman on your founding team, we would like to know about you. Not just because we want to look at you as an investment potential, but we know that our model delivers results, and we encourage you to apply. If you're an expert with industry expertise and access to the innovation economy, we'd like you to be engaged. We'd like you to consider joining our change and our path forward, which includes accessing your network and your expertise for the companies that we serve. If you're an investor, the time has passed for you to blame this on the pipeline. It's time for you to recognize that there's abundant deal flow, but for the barriers that have been put in place by social relationships, flow of capital, and your own business models. Join Astia Angels, or at least take a look at our deal flow, and you'll have the opportunity to see that the companies that are presented defy most myths. They span the sectors of technology, life sciences, clean technology, and consumer products, and truly are addressing global markets and seeing substantial returns for them. And then if you're a funding entity and you want to look for models that are actively influencing and changing the landscape for women entrepreneurs, we seek sponsors and donors who are value add to our model. We're looking for those who care about the innovation economy, be it through philanthropic donations or investment dollars. We have mechanisms for both, and we're really fueled through the generosity of our global community that does fund this work, all of it being underpinned by the investment activity of Astia Angels. I believe that is my last slide, and I will pass it back, and I look forward to hearing from the other presenters today. And once again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sharon. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Marcia Bailey, Council Member and President of the Board of Directors for the Association of Women Business Centers, or AWBC. Marcia Bailey is also the founder and CEO of Women's Economic Ventures, WEB, and the Small Business Loan Fund of Santa Barbara. WEB is a Small Business Administration's Women's Business Center. Ms. Bailey has been developing educational programs and services for women since 1983 and is the primary author of WEB's self-employment training curriculum, From Vision to Venture. She is a former member of the Union Bank of California's Advisory Board and the past president of the California Association for Micro-Enterprise Opportunity. She has served on the board of directors for many local organizations and provides consulting and training on organizational development and sustainability to many women's organizations domestically and globally. Marcia, I turn the mic over to you to tell us about the Association of Women's Business Centers.
Thank you, Jan. I'm happy to have the opportunity today to share some information both about the AWBC and about the women's business centers that we serve. The Association of Women's Business Centers, or AWBC, is a national nonprofit that was founded in 1998 to secure economic justice and entrepreneurial opportunities for women by supporting a national network of women's business centers. Could we move to the next slide, please? A little bit about women's business centers. There are over 100 women's business centers providing a continuum of business development services for women at over 150 locations throughout the United States. So several women's business centers have more than one location. Through those women's business centers, they provide direct business development services to over 145,000 women entrepreneurs each year. So how does the AWBC help those organizations? We have three important roles. The first one is that we help build the capacity of the women's business centers by providing training, mentorship, we share best practices, and we develop private sector partnerships to improve the services to women entrepreneurs. The second way that we support the Women's Business Centers is to act as advocates with policymakers on behalf of the network to ensure that we have continued support and hopefully increasing support in Washington. And thirdly, we work very closely with the Office of Women's Business Ownership at the Small Business Administration to improve the program. Next slide, please. So, how can you get involved with a Women's Business Center? Well, first of all, you can go to our website, awbc.org, and locate a Women's Business Center near you. Right now, there are Women's Business Centers in every state except for Alaska and Idaho. If you're somebody who's wanting to start or grow your business, you can go to the links of one of the Women's Business Centers in your area and learn about the kinds of resources that they provide. One of the things that's very unique about the Women's Business Center program is that WBCs are very diverse both in their nature and in their constituency. And what I mean by that is depending on what services are already available in a community or what the needs are, a WBC has the freedom to really tailor their services. So if there are a lot of veterans in an area, WBCs may have a very strong women veterans program. Services at Women's Business Centers are provided in more than 30 languages. So again, this really reflects the communities where they are located. So there are other ways that you can help WBCs too. One is definitely if you are a successful entrepreneur, or even if you maybe aren't where you want to be as an entrepreneur, but you have experience as an entrepreneur and you have a sustainable business, one of the things that you can do is to volunteer with your local Women's Business Center by becoming a mentor, a trainer, a speaker, or a board member that helps govern the direction of the Women's Business Center. You can also make a donation. Women's Business Centers receive a maximum grant of $150,000 a year from the SBA, and they must match their grant with non-federal funding. So fundraising is always an important issue for WBCs. Next slide, please. So some of the AWBC's accomplishments are, number one, we've been a unified voice for Women's Business Centers in Washington, and I think that's clearly a role that all of the women's organizations on the NWBC have successfully played. We do advocate on behalf of the WBCs to ensure their continued growth and success. Some of the recent successes that we've experienced is that over the last 2 fiscal years, we've been able to accomplish a $3 million increase in appropriations funding, which, you know, given this environment has been something we're very proud of. That's enabled us to both increase the number of WBCs in the United States and to also increase the grant funding to the maximum $150,000. We also have advanced bipartisan legislation to improve and modernize the WBC program for the first time since 1999. The legislation did make it through the House, but not through the Senate, so it's something we're still working on. And in that legislation, we would both authorize an increase in the WBC program spending. It would increase the grant level for the first time since the program was created in 1988. And it would authorize spending for new projects for existing WBCs. So this is something we're continuing to work on this year and hope to be able to make some progress there. Something else that the WBC does, like many of our sister organizations, is we host an annual leadership conference for the WBCs to provide training and support to grow their capacities. Our 2017 conference will be held in September from the 12th to 14th in Alexandria, Virginia. And the last thing I'm very excited about is that we recently were awarded a grant by Standard & Poor's to help grow the capacity of women's business centers to collect and utilize outcome and impact data that will enable us to develop an annual report of the WBC's impact. As all of you know, I think being able to demonstrate your success and your impact is really one of the most important elements of our ability to retain support for the programs that we provide. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. That's great information. Next, I'd like to introduce Pam Prince-Eason, Council Member and President and CEO of Women's Business Enterprise National Council, or WBENC. Pam Prince-Eason has served as the President and CEO of the Women's Business Enterprise National Council since 2011. Prior to joining WBENC, she held the position of Vice President of Worldwide Procurement for Pfizer and held various leadership positions at Texas Instruments, GSE Systems, Warner Lambert, and as co-owner of women-run RMR Associates. She sits on the advisory committees of several corporations, including Ernst & Young Winning Women Program, the Dow Women's Entrepreneurial Network, Walmart Women-Owned Business Advisory Council, Shell Diversity and Inclusion Collaboration Partners, MGM Resorts International Diversity Advisory Board, as well as the Coca-Cola Company's 5x20 initiative. Among many other awards, in 2014, Ms. Prince-Eason received the National Association of Female Executives, NAFE, Women of Excellence Award, recognizing her as a woman of achievement for her proven success in business and in serving others in her workplace and around the globe. Pam, I turn the mic over to you to tell us more about WBENC.
Thank you, Jen. Wonderful job you're doing with moderating this panel. My name is Pamela Prince-Eason. I'm President and CEO of WBENC, and I'm very honored to be here to talk on behalf of WBENC at the national office, as well as our 14 regional partners, our 300 and some national corporate and government members, as well as our over 14,000 certified women business enterprises. So you may ask yourself, when you hear the acronym WBENC, are they actually a bank? And we are not a bank. What we're in business to do is to fuel economic growth globally through access to opportunities by identifying, certifying, and facilitating the development of women-owned businesses. So we're looking for that specific slice of women entrepreneurs who are interested in verifying that they are bona fide women-owned businesses with 51% or more ownership, operational control, and real operational ability to control everything about their business. And so we work with all of the partners that you're hearing from today. We're very proud of the work that they do as well as the work we do. We are celebrating our 20th year in business this year as part of 2017. And so with that, we are the nation's leading third-party certifier of businesses owned, operated, and controlled by women. We do that certification in both the corporate marketplace as well as the federal government marketplace. And that is through our WBE certification as well as our women-owned small business set aside as part of the USSBA set-aside program. Again, I want to quickly bring to your attention that we have 14 regional partners around the United States that are really WBENC's feet on the ground. And so while their name may not be directly named WBENC, some of them are close, like the Women's Business Enterprise Councils, but all 14 of those partners are what we consider to be part of the WBENC network. And so we mentioned to you our corporate members, government members. We mentioned to you our women business enterprises. We also have our national staff and these 14 regional staffs. They are in charge of processing the certification applications and connecting the WBEs to corporate members who are located there regionally, and then doing capacity building programs for our WBEs. So we have that available for you at both the national and the regional level, and that is all throughout the United States. I will mention that we partner externally outside the U.S. with WeConnect International. Okay. And how do we really do this? This is what we consider to be our platform. It's the way we come to market. It's everything that we can offer to you. So without listing all the things that we think that we do that are very beneficial as either requirements of corporate America, requirements of the government, or items that WBEs need in order to break down barriers to be successful, we focus on what we call our core. And our core is made up of the C, which is certification. It's the cornerstone of everything we do. It's why WBENC came to be in the beginning as we think about historically. We are, again, the most relied upon certification, and it is really what we strive to be, is that valued partner, so that when you want to ensure that you are dealing with a woman-owned business that is 51% or more owned, operated, or controlled by a woman or women, that you've gotten that certification and that verification from WBENC. The next thing that we do as part of our core is make sure that opportunities exist, and those opportunities need to deliver programming and networking for all of our constituents. So it's equally important to us that we support our women's needs as well as our corporate and government needs as they develop what local supplier diversity programs should be. In the resources area, we work very hard with our corporate partners to ensure that our network is always addressing challenges and the barriers for WBEs, and that takes resources to do so. And so through the work that we do in the resources area, we are continuously looking for ways to provide access, whether that would be access to capital, whether it would be access to education, or whether it would be access to decision makers. So our resources area is very robust and can only be done with the support of all those in our network. Finally, I would say that engagement is a very important part of the key success of our network. If you ask anyone who's part of the WBENC network, they'll share with you that the more that they do with the network, the more they feel that they're a part of this family, and the more they feel that they create success. So we make sure that recognition is promoting the success of our key constituents and that there's a better awareness of what leading practices are for women-owned businesses. So that is WBENC's core. That's what we focus on, again, both nationally and around the United States. And finally, I'll wrap up by sharing that we have some immediate opportunities for you to engage with us. This is the way at a national level. We really focus on how we can bring people together in order to be successful. I'm going to do these actually in the opposite order. Our Summit and Salute is occurring just a little more than a week from now. What will happen at that will be a combination of activities that occur with our women-owned businesses as well as our corporations, in particular the top corporations for doing business with women business enterprises. Please look for that press release. We're very proud of those corporations. They have a very demonstrated model of having excellent programs as well as things that break down barriers for you, resources, and really best practices in making sure that there's inclusion within the corporate supply chain. That will be occurring in New Orleans, March 21st to the 23rd. Again, it's our 20th year anniversary, so we hope you can enjoy us. And finally, come join us with 4,000 of our best friends at what we consider to be the largest conference of this type for certified women-owned businesses. We'll have supplier diversity professionals together. We'll have professional leaders in procurement. There will be many WBE leaders, and we will be generating business opportunities through matchmaking, both informal and formal networking, and a myriad of educational opportunities. And on top of all of that, there'll be a wonderful business fair where you can really collaborate and talk with buyers on what their exact opportunities are. And that will be June 20th through 22nd of this year in Las Vegas. So I will turn the mic back over to you, Jen, and be glad to answer any questions that you have later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Pam. Amazing information. Okay, next I turn you to Women Impacting Public Policy. Our council member, Rose Wang, holds the representative position on the council, but today we will hear from Jane Campbell, President of Women Impacting Public Policy, otherwise known as WIPP, to tell us more about WIPP. In 2016, Women Impacting Public Policy partnered with the National Development Council to provide support for WIPP's coalition activities. In her role as director of the NDC Washington office, Jane Campbell also serves as president of WIPP. Jane Campbell heads up the NDC's Office of Public Policy and Advocacy, where she manages NDC's public policy efforts in Washington, D.C. In 2001, Campbell served as the first woman mayor of Cleveland, Ohio. As mayor, she attracted nearly $3 billion worth of investment capital to redevelopment projects around the city. Recently, she served as staff director for the United States Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee and has spent her career advocating for economic and community development programs. Jane, I turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Jen. This has been an amazing group of speakers and certainly a tribute to the work that has gone on behalf of women entrepreneurs over the years. I had the unique privilege of serving as the staff director for the Senate Committee on Small Business when we were working on trying to reach that 5%, which really, think about it, 5% as the goal when it's 50% of the population. But it was a big project, and there I saw the incredible advocacy capacity of women impacting public policy. And I saw how WIPP was able to pull together the wide variety of organizations. And so when they came calling on me and asking me to be the president, it's one of those things you just couldn't say no to because it was definitely where my heart is. So let me tell you a little bit about WIPP. We were founded in 2001 as a nonprofit organization to try to bring together the voice on behalf of women entrepreneurs. We have 79 different partner organizations. We call them coalition partners, with whom we have written agreements that we basically serve as their advocacy voice on matters of federal policy. We provide training focused on business growth, and more important, we provide a seat at the table with public policy makers for all of the groups that are involved working with us. We create leadership opportunities for our members. We build alliances between business organizations and political figures to try to increase the voice of women entrepreneurs, and so that the elected officials know how to reach the women entrepreneurs in their state or their district, or who are in the particular industry where they're working. And this collective voice has created a strong understanding on Capitol Hill that when WIPP decides to do something, that WIPP has the ability to generate a huge number of organizations and women entrepreneurs coming and filling up. The day when we filled up the biggest conference room in the Senate, it was remarkable. And I want to tell you, I was on the other side of the table at that time, and I said to the WIPP team, I said, if this room is not full, you are in big trouble. And they said, don't worry, it's going to be full. It was not only full, it was full to overflowing. Every chair was taken, every standing place was taken. We about had to deal with the fire marshal. But so what's the point of all that? The point of coming and being there is because we want to improve the economic situation for women entrepreneurs. You know the numbers. Women are creating businesses faster than men. Women are employing other women. It is very reliable. When you have a woman's business, she is more likely to hire another woman. And so if we're talking about the wealth gap that our professor talked about earlier, one of the avenues toward accumulation of wealth is building a business and building entrepreneurship. And so our mechanism is we provide various ways for women entrepreneurs to get engaged. Women entrepreneurs can get engaged in our free programs like Give Me 5 and Challenge Her, which are all designed to make the federal contracting process less mysterious and more accessible to women entrepreneurs, and so that women who have really quality business skills can become part of the federal government contracting activity. We generate people to testify before Congress, And that is often very complicated because the member of Congress will want invariably someone from their own particular state, their own particular area. And so we get these requests like, I want somebody from Cincinnati to talk to the House Small Business Committee about what do women entrepreneurs want. And so we work with our network, and we are, in fact, in a couple weeks going to have a woman entrepreneur from Cincinnati because Chairman Steve Shabbat represents Cincinnati, and charming as I am, he's not interested in hearing from me. He wants to hear from a real live woman business owner in Cincinnati, which we can do. We, in fact, took the chairman, the guy who is now the chairman when he was the ranking member of the Senate Small Business Committee, to a Challenge Her event, which is our training program for women contractors. We had one in Idaho because he represents Idaho, and he wasn't sure that all this really mattered to Idaho. Well, we got a group of women business owners together in Idaho who were interested in getting contracts. Lo and behold, he now is like all about understanding what this matters, because that's what we have to do. We have to bring public policy to life. It gets pretty stale to hear about the various alphabet soups of public policy. But when you have an actual woman talking, it makes a difference. Let me tell you real quickly what WIPP's done in the past, but more importantly, I want to tell you what we're doing right now, because I think right now is where we have to get engaged. I told you we've done our successful educational programs. We keep doing those to try to bring more and more women into the federal contracting. In 2013, we successfully advocated to remove the dollar limits on awards set aside for women-owned small businesses, because for some reason, unbeknownst to anybody that could explain it with any rationality, women's businesses were capped. Well, we took care of that. In 2016, our advocacy efforts led to the expansion of the NAICS codes that were available from only 83 to 113. Now, still got work to do. We're not done. We finally were successful in advocating so hard for women's participation that we met the 5% mandate. Now, truth matter, 2016, we met 5%. We raised that as an accomplishment. There's a part of me that says it's an embarrassment that the goal was 5%. But the fact is, until we just, advocated and engaged organizations like all of these on the phone, it didn't happen. So what are we doing now? We want to make sure that women entrepreneurs are part of the policy conversation that's going on right here and now. We're having a conversation about tax reform. And you know what? We need to make sure that women entrepreneurs are at that table. For example, it would be a shame if tax reform only dealt with the corporate tax rate and didn't deal with the fact that most women entrepreneurs are either LLCs or S corporations or some kind of pass-through. And so we want to make sure that that's attended to. We're in the process right now of doing a survey, which we hope that many of you will participate in, to look at whether the tax code in its implementation ends up differentially affecting women entrepreneurs. And so we're doing a series, we're doing a study together with American University's Kogut School of Business. We are going to present for our members and coalition partner folks a seminar on what is in the blueprint. What is the tax reform conversation? Because I will tell you, it's very complicated, but if you just try to listen to the noise on the television or in the media, it doesn't really clarify what the issues are for women entrepreneurs. So we're going to be having that kind of an educational effort, because you can only be a good advocate if you know what you're talking about. And so we're doing that. We're doing a similar educational engagement around what's in the healthcare replacement bill and what does that mean for women entrepreneurs. Because WIPP has consistently been engaged in the healthcare reform debate, not in the political chaos, but in the focus on the ability for small enterprises to pool and get the ability to purchase at a reasonable rate because you're part of a larger pool. Now, there's lots of ways to get there, but we want to make sure that is a part of whatever healthcare conversation goes on. We are also going to be putting together an educational piece that outlines the timeline for the appropriations and what's going to happen with the finances of the government. Many of our members remember all too well the government shutdown. And for those who were federal contractors and faced that government shutdown, they have taken me by the side and said, please, can you please guarantee the government will not shut down? Now, I want to tell you, we're great advocates, but I cannot promise that. But I can tell you that right now we have the same party is in charge of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And given that, there's nobody else to blame. And so it is more likely that somehow they will find agreement, because you can't turn around and blame it on somebody else. It's the same team. So those are a few of the things that we're doing to try to engage. We want to invite everyone to participate, to join WIPP. You can join as an individual member. You can participate through your coalition partner. We are very flexible about how you come to the dance, but we want you to be part of it. We also have a conference that we'll be having here in Washington coming up in October. We specifically tried to have it at a different time than some of the other big conferences so that people could go to both, and that it will be October 3rd and 4th, and focus on really training women entrepreneurs how to be successful advocates on our own behalf. So thank you for having me. Thank you for being part of this. We look forward to the efforts ahead.
Thank you so much, Jane. We're so grateful for the important work that you're doing and engaging in these really important conversations on behalf of women business owners. So our final presentation today will be by Dr. Marcia Firestone, Council Member and President and Founder of the Women's Presidents Organization, WPO. Dr. Marcia Firestone is recognized expert in entrepreneurship, establishing WPO in 1997 as a peer advisory organization for women who own and lead multi-million-dollar businesses. She is also founder and president of the Women's Presidents Education Organization, dedicated to increasing access to business opportunities for women's business enterprises. Dr. Firestone led the development of a master plan for accelerating the growth of women's businesses, which was presented to Congress and the public in March of 1999. She was appointed to her first term on the National Women's Business Council in 2003 and her second term in 2015. She serves on numerous boards and advisory councils, including WBENC, Enterprising Women Advisory Board, Newcomb College Institute Directors Advisory Council, and the International Women's Forum. And among many awards, she has been honored with the Applause Award for Breaking Down Barriers for Women in Business, the Hall of Fame and Legacy Award from Enterprising Women, and 2014 Skills to Succeed Award from the Committee of 200, and the Professional Achievement Award from Tulane University. Dr. Marcia Firestone, it is with great honor that I turn the mic over to you to tell us more about the Women's Presidents Organization.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be able to talk about my favorite subject, the WPO, which I founded as an outgrowth of my work with the American Women's Economic Development Corporation in New York City. That was a program that worked with startup and young businesses, but did not work with the more successful businesses. And it opened my eyes to the fact that that was a need that was not being addressed in the market. And so I developed WPO, which provides access to business education for successful women entrepreneurs worldwide through confidential, collaborative peer learning groups for second stage entrepreneurs. So what do I mean by second stage? Those are businesses that are beyond the startup phase and who have employees and revenue that they are able to contribute to the economy. The main goals of WPO are to accelerate business growth, enhance competitiveness, and promote economic security for million-dollar-plus businesses. When we talk about WPO, we talk about the 4 C's. WPO members collaborate in a confidential setting with non-competitive businesses in each chapter with a commitment to support one another and to help make connections. And WPO currently, at this time, the average revenues of our members, so in order to join WPO, you must have $1 million in revenues annually if you are service-based, $2 million if you're product-based, and the average revenues today are $13.4 million, with the aggregate revenues at $23.7 billion. The average number of employees are 86, with 153,000 employees in the aggregate. And the years in business are around 20 years. There are many opportunities to engage with WPO if you meet the membership criteria. First of all, to join our regular chapter meetings. We have 135 chapters on 6 continents. 20% of our members now come from the international community. So you can start out by joining as a chapter member, but you also can, as you grow your business, move up the ladder. So the second level is the platinum level, and that's for women who gross at least $10 million, and the average revenue of that group is $38 million. And then there's the Zenith group with the annual revenue at least $50 million and the average revenue at $153 million. Another opportunity in which to engage, if you are a growing business, you can apply for the 50 fastest growing women-owned, women-led companies underwritten by American Express, Commercial Global Payments. And we have been involved with the 50 fastest for the last 10 years, and we are about to announce the next class, which will take place at our conference in Orlando, May 4th through 6th, and we will announce the next group. You do not have to be a member of WPO. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to meet the criteria for growth. Some of the major accomplishments that we're so proud of fall under, well, the 50 fastest is one that we're extremely proud of. The second is our conference, which we have every year. We alternate between West Coast and the East Coast, and this year it's on the East Coast in Orlando at the Ritz-Carlton. We're expecting about 850 attendees to help us celebrate our 20th anniversary. We are entrepreneurial excellence. The next 20 years is the theme of this year's conference. One program that we are especially proud of is our partnership with 100 Black Men of America, where we honor women of color jointly with the 100 Black Men Association. We've been to 15 cities. We will be adding 3 more cities this year, Indianapolis, Houston, and New Orleans. We've also published a book. Last year we published the book on growing women-owned and women-led companies. It is what we call our guide to growth, and we selected 15 of the winners of the 50 fastest to talk about each of them in the book. Finally, I would like to say, in wrapping this up, that WPO is very proud that we are able to work with a population that has been neglected, actually, until this time. We have grown our companies so that when we started our Platinum group, we only had a very few women who were over 10 million. And now our membership is about 35% of our membership is over 10 million. So we're very proud of that. We are supporting the fact that owning your own business, Victoria talked about how important entrepreneurship is to the economic health of women. And we very much support economic security for our members, their employees, and their families. We believe that entrepreneurship is the great equalizer. It's the one place where women pay themselves more, have more influence, more power, can control the time. We believe that entrepreneurship is that leader in economic security.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcia, and congratulations on all of the hard work that you have put in to create such a remarkable organization. Super impressive. Okay, so thank you all council members for the information about all the organizations that you represent and what they do for women in business. I have definitely learned a lot about all of the amazing things you all offer. I think we have some time now for a few questions. I know that a couple have come in, so I have the first one from Marcia Bailey. Marcia, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is there any grant assistance available for women onward pre-startups in New York?
Is the question about grants for women starting up businesses?
Yeah.
Okay. No, there really aren't grants for women to start up businesses. What there are services that are targeted towards women, or there are many loan funds that target women. There are, as many of the other presenters talked about, there are set-asides in the contracting space to help give women a leg up. But, there are really not grants except in very few technical cases. Generally, if you have like a health-related kind of product, there might be a grant through the National Institutes of Health, but again, those are very competitive. One of the reasons the women's business centers are around are to really help women surmount the obstacles of access to capital. But no, don't expect there to be grants out there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And this is for Jane with WIPP. Are you still on, Jane?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I was muted. I'm on.
No worries. No worries. So we've reached the 5% goal. How do we get to the next level? What is our role in increasing the goal and pushing the needle forward?
I love the question. The role is to engage with the members of the House and Senate Small Business Committees who have jurisdiction over the establishment of the goal, and to remind them that the 5% goal is something that we could really do much better. because they have, Congress exists to make the law and to change the law. So I think probably the first step will be to stay at the goal for 2017, because it took so long to reach the goal for 2016 that we want to make sure that we can establish. One of the great things is that women's businesses that get federal contracts do a great job. And so that is an important piece of information. The second thing that we're doing now is we are looking at multiple award contracts. This is one of the challenges in federal contracting, is that sometimes your contracting officers will put a number of activities together and do a multiple award for a long time, and those are often to a large company. And we did a study, WIPP did a study where we tried to look to see what happened with those large contracts. And we did a sample of 19 contracts and found that in those, well over half had some tracks for socially disadvantaged populations. Might be veterans, might be minority, might be 8A, but over half of them had none for women. And so what we believe is that these multiple award contracts should have tracks for each of the business groups that have been identified as socially disadvantaged: veterans, women, hub zone, minority. And so we really are trying to work as a united front. First step is that we could, we're a nonprofit organization that exists by the contributions of our corporate sponsors and our members. So we could only do but such a survey of such a size. So we would like to generate the support to get the Small Business Administration to do an evaluation of all the multiple award contracts to find out if we really see across the government, are we making sure that even if there's a multiple award contract, you honor the set-aside programs for socially disadvantaged businesses. So that's the first step. And that will open up a whole new realm of business.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Marcia Firestone, I have a question for you. Many of our membership organizations have been expanding their footprint beyond the U.S. Would you be able to explain a little bit about WPO's role in the international sphere?
Thank you for that question. Yes. Well, first of all, one of the important points that we have recognized is, contrary to what we may all think about international women, there are many, many businesses that fit the criteria for WPO. We were invited this year to present to the all-parliamentary party group in Parliament on how we have moved the needle here in the U.S. and how they could move the needle in the U.K. because although there are many businesses that do meet the criteria of larger growing companies, that there are still many that don't meet the criteria. And I have to say that the UK needs to do some work. So one of the things I recommended to the all-parliamentary group was that they look at our results from our 1998 Women's Economic Summit, which recommended that we needed four things, and I hear those four things in many different shapes and forms, but here were the four that came out of the summit: access to credit, access to new markets, access to advocacy, and access to business education. And I think that we have been able to use those four kinds of programs in the U.S., and probably we need to help our sisters internationally as well to gain some help with those same 4 programs.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, I have time for one more question, and this is for Victoria. Victoria, are you still on the line?
Okay. I sure am. I am here.
Thank you. So your presentation on the wealth gap was a huge eye-opener. What policies have been proven to make the biggest marks in reducing the disparity between men and women? Where do we start?
You know, that's a great question. There's a number of different places to approach it. But the first is to understand that most women don't realize, and most policymakers aren't aware of the depth and breadth of the wealth gap. I'm going to share a narrative from a woman who testified at one of the hearings I chaired in Massachusetts with the Women's Commission, because it's a very average story. She said, "I did everything right. I was a good wife, I was a good employee, and I was a good mother. I wasn't poor during my working years, and I didn't think I was going to be poor. I retired. I'm in my 60s, but after the 2008 recession, what I saved isn't enough, and now no one will hire me." And when we look across the United States, though the poorest group of people in the United States is women of color, the largest group of poor people is elderly white women, much of whom have the narrative of the anecdote I just shared. It's understanding that income and wealth aren't the same thing, and we need to educate our policymakers, look at programs and policies to understand how do we ensure women both have enough income, but how do we educate and provide tools so that women can assess, gain, manage, and effectively understand the assets they'll need in the future and how they build them starting today. It's a great question, and I encourage all organizations who are listening to really think about what are the ways that from your position you can help impact this wealth gap, and how do you begin to make that part of your narrative. You know, as Marcia really talked about, it is this harness of entrepreneurship and this ability to leverage women's economic independence and power that can help close this gap. But we're not going to be able to address it until people understand that it's there, how important it will be. And the tagline I'll share, which is something that I had read, and I thought that's exactly right, what women need to know. It doesn't matter what you make on the day that you retire. It only matters what you've saved.
Yeah, we could probably talk about this all day. I feel like this is so important, and we all have so much work to do. Oh, my gosh. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This concludes our panel session. Thank you all so much for your time, for sharing the amazing work you all do on behalf of women entrepreneurs. I guess it's time to turn it back over to Kimberly Blackwell.
All right, thank you. On this deserved day, recognizing women of past, present, and yet unseen excellence, not just of domestic but of global impact, you've heard from some of the most selfless and serviceful individuals who assume the plight and the fight for the advancement of women-owned businesses and women business leaders. They blaze trails, they govern, they create access and opportunities. Personally, I'd like to thank them not just as leaders of their respective organizations, but as servant leaders of the National Women's Business Council. At the NWBC, we're so proud to recognize the collaborative, the network, and the affinity community of 10 million strong women business owners, representing a diversity of industries, backgrounds, ethnicities, and geographies. These women are strengthening our economy, investing in their communities, and creating jobs. As a council, it is an honor to serve as a counselor, a convener, a collaborator with all of you, and to set a new set of leaders and advise a new set of leaders in the White House, U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Small Business Administration. The council will continue to focus on the issues that impact women business owners the most and on identifying the most innovative solutions to the challenges faced ahead. By studying what each strand of the community needs and joining forces to find solutions to the toughest challenges we will all push forward together. And don't forget, watch out for our research release of women's participation in business incubators and accelerators later this month. We hope that you've enjoyed today's meeting. Again, please mark your calendars and save the dates for May 10th and August 9th of this year for our next public meetings. Please don't forget #CelebrateHer. Again, #CelebrateHer, all caps. Not just today, but in our pathways forward for the many achievements of women in business. Once again, happy Women's History Month.
Thank you to our speakers, and thank you all in the audience for joining us today. This conference is now concluded. You may now disconnect.